Hello, everyone. I'm back with you again, and I had an epiphany. Something just kind of popped into my mind, and I was thinking about the reasons behind becoming so exhausted um, when I'm in the presence of extroverts. And I guess I'm having these epiphanies because I'm kind of living this out this week, being around my father, who is an ESFJ, very extroverted. He doesn't know a stranger. Every place he goes, everyone knows him and he knows everybody. They all know him by name. He knows them by name. Um, he's kind of an unforgettable character. He loves to joke, tells jokes, tells the stupidest jokes, in my opinion, and stuff I've heard over and over again, but he's going to tell the same jokes. It's just how he is. That's his jovial, extroverted side. But what is it about these people, these conversations, this energy that wears us out? Why does it bother us? And as I was contemplating that, I remembered the amount of thoughts that go through my mind. As remember, I did a video not long ago on being INFJ, the T type, the turbulent type, and how we process so many more thoughts in our mind than the average person, sometimes 4 or 5 times more a day than the normal individual. So, with that in mind, I had this epiphany, and I realized, what you hear on the outside coming from your father or from other extroverts who just talk, 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 talk all day long. I mean, it's all day long from the time they get up till the time they go to bed. It's talk, 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 talk. And I got to thinking, what they're doing verbally, communicating, is what actually is going on. The same conversation, I guess, or amount of conversation is going on in my mind. Because as an ESFJ, he probably talks 5 times more than I do a day. Well, maybe 10 times more. I don't know. It's a bunch. I don't talk that much. And he kind of gets on to me sometimes because he'll say, you just sit there. You don't say anything. You're quiet. And, I'm like, well, Dad, I'm just listening. There's not much I can add to the conversation. Half the time, I don't know the people he's talking about. I don't know what he's talking about. I just listen. But while I'm listening to him, there's also this dialogue going on in my head. And so while I'm trying to process the external dialogue, I'm also trying to process the internal one at the same time. So there's these conflicting voices, listening to the external versus listening to the internal. Regardless, many times the reason why we have a hard time focusing on the extrovert when they're talking is because what they're saying doesn't align at all with what's going on in our head. And it's hard for us to turn that off and then focus on what they're talking about, especially when it's petty or it's, small talk or, just somebody talking to hear their self talk, just to have something to say. Now, the thoughts that go through my head don't seem to be petty or small talk. They usually think about pretty deep stuff, deep things. So there's a conflict between their dialogue and my own internal dialogue. But at the same time, I realized today, it just dawned on me how that I'm giving internally the same amount of the same kind of conversation, continual conversation, as what the extrovert gives externally. So it's kind of a strange setup how that, we both have a similarity in that there's a lot of conversation being had. It just depends on whether we're internalizing it or externalizing it. I truly believe that whatever comes into the brain of an extrovert like an ESFJ, for instance, or an ENFP, whatever hits here is going to flow straight down and out the mouth. I mean, they can't help it. Whereas, we can maintain that conversation internally and let it go and process its way through our thoughts. And we don't have to necessarily speak it out. And most of the time we don't, because stuff we think about is usually off the charts for most people to deal with. They don't want to talk about it. It's not on the petty enough scale for them to deal with, so we don't say a whole lot. But I just wanted to share that epiphany with you. If you understand how our mind works, it really, to me, it makes sense why we're exhausted, why those people exhaust us. And it's not so much them or their conversation, it's just the fact that it's too much. It's overwhelming for us to deal with what's going on in here and what we have to hear and with our ear while they're talking. And we got to make all of it make sense. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of stress on us. So that's why I believe that we have such a struggle. And if you have something else, that maybe another epiphany or something you want to share, please write in the comments and let me know. But does that make sense to some of you? This has got, I guess there's part of this that has to turn off in order for me to really connect with the sensor or the extrovert, because I realize that this probably isn't going to mix too well with what they're saying and what they're talking about. And sometimes that gets me in trouble because they don't feel like I'm really paying attention to them, maybe, or even though I am, or that maybe I'm not in the moment with them. And I struggle with that. Anyway, let me know what you think about this. I love you. God bless. Take care.